After having a somewhat successful directorial debut, Maggie Gyllenhaal is back with her second feature, a more ambitious, more riskier take. One film that has divided audiences completely. Some hate, some really enjoy. I am, of course, talking about The Bride! Exclamation mark. So, let's talk about this wildly divisive feature. To be completely honest with you, I actually did not enjoy too much of Maggie Gyllenhaal's directorial debut, The Lost Daughter, and I was a little bit trepidatious going into this film. It had mixed reviews. A lot of the stills and images that were being released, especially of the monster played by Christian Bale, were just giving a lot of Suicide Squad, Jared Leto, Harley Quinn vibes. I was expecting something very cringy and just not really my pace at all. Having watched the film, I definitely understand a lot of the mixed reception it has been getting. I think this film is so wildly flawed that I can understand so many people just writing it off. I, however, am someone who really enjoys when a director takes wildly massive swings, and that's exactly what this is. I think this film is just unbridled femininity coming through on the screen. I think there are wild creative and stylistic decisions that either might work for some or not work for others. The creation and ideas behind these characters and the way that they're placed within the narrative is all very strange, offbeat. Sometimes it's incomprehensible, but there are also times where I think Maggie Gyllenhaal is able to get a big point across. The film wants to talk about a lot of different things here, but the majority of it is about females finding their voice and consistently being held down and not listened to, even when they have something really significant to contribute. And I think this carries a lot of the same spirit that Mary Shelley would have had, or even the author of the novel of The Bride would have had when visualizing this character in a modern day format. Mary Shelley is actually utilized quite creatively here. The original creator of Frankenstein, she did not write The Bride, but you're thrust into just her perspective and her playing God in a lot of ways within some of the more surrealistic moments within the film. Many dream sequences feature this character, and Jessie Buckley here plays her quite well. She is wildly entertaining in this film. Buckley plays 3 characters here, all from different eras, all completely different characters in a sense. The Bride is obviously the main one that she's playing here, but there are 2 others here, and it just showcases the amount of range she truly has as an actress. I think she's in peak form right now after delivering just such a great performance in Hamnet, and then continuing that on here. This one, however, while not as serious, it just seems like the type of film that she would have needed after just such a heavy film like Hamnet, where this film is just having so much fun and just throwing ideas at the wall and just being completely wild, and Jessie Buckley gets to play in that space to great effect. I think there are many moments where she really shines. It is a very showy performance, and sometimes some of the characteristics and certain moments that she pulls due to the direction and the screenplay don't always work. This character has a tick. She's screaming all the time. Sometimes it just doesn't impact the film whatsoever, and it keeps the film at a very flat tone. But for the most part, I was very engaged in this character. I was very engaged in the romance between her and Christian Bale's monster. He is the driving force of this narrative. He's the one that brings her back because he wants a bride. He wants love. And Bale kind of plays it with a little bit of a 3-dimensionality that you might have seen in Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein with Jacob Elordi's portrayal of the monster. This one's a little bit different, of course, but I think a lot of the same characteristics are there, and I think Bale plays this character quite well. There are layers to this character that are unearthed, and he has many positive and negative things about him, and I think the character is interesting, and the way that he plays off Jessie Buckley's bride is brilliant. There's an interesting use of tone and style in the film. The film feels like a romance at times. Sometimes it feels like a musical. Sometimes it feels very classical. It feels like a noir. There's just so many ideas being smashed on the screen here. Sometimes it's like Joker. There's just all of these just strange ideas here that are being just put out there. Some of them work, some of them don't. It does feel like a mess at times, and sometimes it can feel unengaging, but there are other times where I was really drawn into this movie. As I said, was really fascinated and drawn into the romance that was playing out between the bride and the monster. However, there are other elements of this film that I absolutely hated, like the detective narrative that was playing out with Peter Sarsgaard and Penelope Cruz, both who I think were completely wasted in this film, and many of the scenes featuring these characters were just boring. There's no other word for it. They were uninteresting, unengaging, they were one note, they were just saying the same thing over and over and over again, and I think they were communicated even better when we were following the bride and the creature anyway, so there was really no point in having these scenes thrown in here that just blow out the runtime way longer than it needs to be. There's a similar thing with Mobsters, which just gets completely thrown under the rug. It just doesn't impact the story one iota apart from kicking it off, and then it feels like Maggie Gyllenhaal's trapped herself because she clearly doesn't have the same interest in these characters. They don't really do much for the narrative outside of the beginning of it, and because of that, they're just kind of pushed to the side, and they're still there and they're making appearances here and again, but the way that resolves is just so rushed and forgotten about. It just felt like the biggest afterthought. So why really even put it in there, if I'm being honest? These characters, the detectives and the mobsters, they can all be faceless, nameless characters. They can be just an omnipresent threat that can drive the narrative forward, but they don't need their own character arcs and this depth that is added to them that is just unengaging and feels somewhat uninspired. In terms of crafts, I think the film is really phenomenal. The makeup is utterly fantastic. I love the look of the bride. I love the costumes that she's wearing. I love the look of the creature and what he's doing and what he's going for. It feels period accurate with this monster tale. I think the cinematography for the most part is phenomenal. There's some great dynamic camera movement here that I really enjoyed. It was very showy. It utilizes black and white. It utilizes color. It has a great use of zoom-ins and panning shots that I thought just worked to the better part of this story and narrative. I liked how exciting this film could be. I like the risks that are being taken consistently, whether they work or not. I like that Maggie Gyllenhaal is just serving so much energy here and has the courage to produce such ideas almost carefree, and I just love that. It's exciting to see. It makes the narrative exciting. Other technical elements I'm very mixed on. I think the sound mixing is very poor indeed. As I said, a lot of these characters are screaming at each other consistently, especially Jessie Buckley's character, and I think she is great for a lot of this, but some of the tics that she has and some of the screaming that is going on in this film is very hard to hear because the mix I found was just so poor. It was very hard to digest everything that was being said because it just gets lost in all of this sound, and I think that just hurt the film. I think I would have been more engaged in these characters if the sound mix was a lot better. As a whole, I think The Bride is a solid film. I don't think it's perfect. I don't think it's for everyone. I think a lot of you out there hate this movie, and that's really evident by a lot of the reviews I'm seeing. But I think there is a crowd out there that can really get behind this movie and appreciate some of the risks that are being taken. I, for one, am someone that enjoys that, whether they work or not, whether someone's just going for it. I appreciate that. And there is enough good in here for me to enjoy this film as a whole. Do I think it's the best thing I've ever seen? Absolutely not. Would I recommend it to everyone? Absolutely not. But me personally, I thought it was a good film. I had a good time with it. And as a score, I'm going to give The Bride a 3.5 out of 5. And those are my thoughts towards The Bride. If you've seen the movie, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.